Hey everybody, welcome into the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. We're going to talk about Pascal Siakam potentially going to the Golden State Warriors with the 7th pick in the draft on the move. This one is really fascinating, particularly with how they would have to execute this. It's not going to be an easy deal to get done, but I'm going to break it all down here. Obviously, solo today, no Keith. His power went out right before we were going to record on this, so you guys just get me. But I will say I appreciate all of the support that we've been getting lately. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel, and don't forget to turn on those notifications as well. Okay, so this was an idea that was floated out there by John Hollinger that the Warriors might want to move the 7th pick and James Wiseman in exchange for Pascal Siakam of the Toronto Raptors. Let's first take a look at the Warriors' perspective. Why would they do this? Well, simple. They've got an aging Steph Curry who was tremendous last season. They've got Klay Thompson coming back from injury. Fingers crossed. Hopefully he will be 100%. And they've got Draymond Green. When you've got guys of that caliber, you want to maximize your opportunity to win it all. And make no mistake, when they're healthy, the Warriors are indeed a contender. If you can land a guy like Pascal Siakam, that can boost you up to the next level and put you into contention at the top of the Western Conference. So if you can land a piece like that, you got to go out there and do it, particularly when you've got a talent the caliber of Steph Curry. So right now, the assumption is the Warriors, just like we thought last year with the 2 pick, they didn't end up moving him, but this year they could very well move some draft assets, move some younger pieces in order to find guys to help them win right now. Now, Pascal Siakam only shot 30% from deep last season, and he was dealing with a shoulder injury. But for a lot of people, they look at Warriors players and they say, well, if you can't shoot the 3 that well, you're not going to be on the Golden State Warriors. But think about defensively what Siakam could bring to them. Think about how switchy a lineup could potentially be with Draymond, Klay, Andrew Wiggins. Maybe we're going to get into that in just a minute in terms of how the trade would work. Plus Siakam in there, you would be able to have 4 guys on the floor who can essentially switch 1 through 5, and that could be a very big deal for the Warriors defense. And if Siakam's 3-point shooting comes around, particularly with the open space that he'd be getting on this Warriors team, then they'd be off and running. Now, the Raptors, why would they do a deal like this? Number 7 and James Wiseman in exchange for Pascal Siakam, who's a tremendous find for them. Well, look, if Kyle Lowry tells them we're out the door, that's going to help trigger a rebuild for them. Yes, they still had Fred VanVleet. They've got some pieces still, but they would realistically have to start looking towards the future and start building the next generation of Raptors players. And what a great way to do that then with the number 4 pick in the draft, which they already have, then pick up the number 7 pick as well, plus last year's number 2 pick in James Wiseman in exchange for Pascal Siakam in order to really jumpstart your rebuild. So that would definitely be attractive. You're also clearing some salary by doing that. So speaking of salary, how do you actually get this done? This is where it gets really tricky. Here's the problem. James Wiseman and the 7th pick for Siakam does not work. The Warriors are ridiculously over the cap. They are into the tax. They can't do this deal as it's outlined. You can't do James Wiseman and 7 for Siakam, who's making almost $31 million next season. So how do you get it done? Well, it might come down to a Kelly Oubre Jr. sign and trade. Maybe he's the piece that can make up the gap going to the Toronto Raptors if you're able to work something out there. But again, you have to assume that Oubre Jr., number 1, wants to go to the Raptors, and number 2, that the Raptors want Kelly Oubre Jr. If they don't, a very simple swap, which would almost be a straight across one, would be 7 and Andrew Wiggins in exchange for Pascal Siakam. Now, that does not get the Raptors the former number 2 overall pick from last season in James Wiseman, but it does get them Andrew Wiggins, Canadian player. Maybe there's some appeal there, and it would be a very simple, very easy to execute trade. Otherwise, you're probably looking at doing something like Wiseman at $9 million. You take Kelly Oubre Jr., you re-sign him to just enough to make up the difference, and you could even take the number 7 pick. The Warriors could use it for the Raptors and then immediately sign the player. Whoever it is that they take, they can immediately sign the player, wait 30 days so that player's salary counts towards their salary cap, and then execute the deal. That's a possibility as well. Again, if they decide Wiseman's not in it, instead we're going to swap in Wiggins and 7 for Pascal Siakam, and I'm not saying either side would do that. I'm just saying in terms of making the math work, that would be a very easy straight across swap. Otherwise, you've got to find some other pieces because Wiseman and 7, even if you wait the 30 days, is not enough salary to match up with the $31 million that Pascal Siakam is making. So how they execute this is going to be really, really fascinating. Again, I could see a Kelly Oubre Jr. sign and trade, but there's a lot of ifs in that in order to get that done. If Kelly Oubre Jr. wants to be a Raptor, if the Raptors want him, if they want to pay him that much, it gets very complicated very quickly. So I think that this rumor has some legs to it. It makes a lot of sense for both sides, but how they execute it will probably determine whether or not it actually gets done and what each side is willing to do. But give me your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel and turn on those notifications as well. How good could the Warriors be if they get this done? This could be a title contending team next season once again if they're able to pull the trigger on this deal, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.